All right, Celtics fans, gather around because there's a lot to dive into today. The buzz around Boston feels different this time. Maybe it's the start of a new chapter. Maybe it's the new mix of players. Or maybe it's just that everyone's locked in and hungry to prove something. Whatever it is, the energy feels real. And if you've been following this team closely, you can tell the vibes are good. So let's talk about what's really going on behind the scenes, what Joe Mazzulla's been up to, and why this start to the season might be way more important than it seems on paper. Let's start with Coach Mazzulla because, honestly, he's been one of the most fascinating figures in the NBA this past year. Everyone's got an opinion on the guy. Some say he's too intense, too calculated, too cold. Others love that about him. They see a coach who's laser-focused and refuses to sugarcoat anything. But recently, some stories started coming out that give us a totally different picture of who Joe really is. You've got players like Anthony Simons talking about the bond they've built with him since the trade, about how Joe took time to really know him off the court, his background, his family, the things that matter outside basketball. That's not something we hear every day about a guy who's been labeled as all business or robotic on the sidelines. And it's not just Simons. All summer long, there have been little stories popping up about Mazzulla connecting with players in unexpected ways. Whether it was hanging out in Colorado with Derek White, spending time in the gym with Jason Tatum during rehab, or traveling to Utah to check in on Neemias Quetta, it seems like Joe is putting real effort into building relationships beyond the X's and O's. That's a big shift from the version of him people think they know, the one who yanks players from the game after a single missed assignment or gives off this vibe of my way or the highway. It's almost like he's rewriting his own narrative this offseason, showing the human side that's always been there, but maybe got buried under the intensity of coaching one of the most demanding franchises in sports. And look, it's easy for outsiders to misread that intensity. When you're watching him on the sidelines, pacing, shouting, reacting to every detail, it can come off as harsh. But when you talk to the players, you start hearing a different story. They talk about accountability, about structure, about a coach who demands excellence because he genuinely believes in their potential. That's a huge distinction. It's not about punishment. It's about pushing guys to be their best, and there's a real art to that balance. Especially in today's NBA, where player-coach relationships are everything, creating that trust while still holding players accountable might be the secret ingredient to keeping this locker room together. Now, let's not act like this is all sunshine and good vibes. The truth is, Joe's coaching style is still a work in progress, and this season will test that more than ever. When you've got a team with this kind of talent, Tatum, Brown, Holiday, Porzingis, you're expected to win. Anything short of a deep playoff run gets labeled as failure. That pressure is constant, and it can crush coaches who don't know how to adapt. But that's exactly what seems to be happening with Mazzulla. You can tell he's learning how to read his players better, how to manage personalities, and how to adjust his approach depending on the moment. I think what's most interesting here is that he's not trying to create Mazzulla ball. He's not trying to force everyone into his system and make it about him. He said it himself recently. It's not about adapting to Joe. It's about working together. That says a lot about where his mindset is right now. He wants this team to play Celtics basketball, shared accountability, unselfish movement, smart defense, and trust across the board. That's the kind of environment that wins long-term. It's not about one philosophy dominating everything. It's about blending all the pieces into something cohesive. And man, if you've ever been part of a team environment, you know how rare that is at the professional level. When guys are making millions, it's easy to tune out a coach or just go through the motions. But this group doesn't feel like that. You see it in their body language, in the way they talk about each other, and in how they react during games. Even in preseason, you could see that accountability starting to take shape. Someone blows a rotation, and it's not just Joe calling it out. It's teammates holding each other responsible. That's the kind of culture that separates a good team from a great one. And that's what makes this upcoming stretch so intriguing. The early season schedule is brutal. You've got Philly right out of the gate, then New York, Detroit, New Orleans, Cleveland. It's a grind. These aren't easy wins. These are teams with size, depth, and confidence. So the Celtics don't have the luxury of easing their way into rhythm. They got to come out sharp, focused, and ready to execute. And that's where all this offseason chemistry work comes into play. If this team starts strong, it's going to validate everything Joe's been doing behind the scenes. But if they stumble early, the critics are going to come right back with the same old takes. He's not ready. He's in over his head. The team tunes him out. That's the tightrope of coaching in Boston. There's no patience here. No room for excuses. The bar is championship or bust, period. But honestly, that's what makes this job so fascinating. You're watching a young coach evolve in real time under the brightest spotlight in the league. I think this version of the Celtics is built differently, though. It's not just about superstar power anymore. It's about depth, development, and finding ways to win even when things aren't perfect. You can see it in the younger guys, too. Jordan Walsh, Josh Minott, all those players who are fighting for rotation spots. They've got something to prove, and Mazzulla's giving them that opportunity. He's not handing out minutes based on status. He's making everyone earn it, and that sends a message. Take Minott, for example. The guy's energy has been contagious. Every time he steps on the floor, he's flying around, defending, crashing the glass, trying to make something happen. That's the kind of effort that can carve out a role, even on a loaded roster. Same with Walsh. Yeah, the injury set him back, but the potential is obvious. All right, let's pick up right where we left off, because when you start really breaking down what this Boston Celtics team is walking into this season, you realize it's not just about the roster or the stats. It's about identity. Joe Mazzulla has been preaching that this isn't Mazzulla ball, it's Celtics basketball. And that might sound like coach speak, but it actually means something. You can already tell he's trying to shift the culture from being centered on one system or one voice to something much more collective. Every player is expected to hold each other accountable. If you mess up on defense, if you blow a rotation, you're not just answering to Joe, you're answering to the guy next to you, because that's the kind of locker room that wins when the stakes get high. The fascinating part about this is how it plays out with a group that's not the same powerhouse lineup we've been used to seeing. No Jason Tatum, no Kristaps Porzingis, no Drew Holiday. This roster is thinner, younger, and filled with players who still need to prove they belong in Boston's long-term plans. That's a huge opportunity, but it's also a test. Mazzulla's going to find out real quick who can handle that level of pressure, because when you're coaching a team that doesn't have a top 5 player to bail you out, everything comes down to execution, chemistry, and trust. And that's what makes this version of the Celtics so intriguing. You've got guys like Josh Minott stepping into the spotlight out of nowhere, trying to carve out real minutes. His athleticism, his energy, and even that signature, why not, Minott swagger after that dunk have caught everyone's attention. He's playing like a guy who knows this could be his breakout year. And when you've got that hunger on your bench, that's the kind of thing that can ignite a team. On the flip side, there are players who might be skating on thin ice right now. Someone like Baylor Shireman, who hasn't exactly hit his stride yet, is under real pressure to show he can knock down shots consistently and not be a defensive liability. When you're trying to earn a rotation spot under Mazzulla, average just isn't going to cut it. And then there's Neemias Queta, the big man whose preseason has sparked a ton of conversation. There's potential there, no doubt about it, but it's been a roller coaster. One night, he looks like he could be a key rim protector. The next, he's struggling to rotate in time or finish plays inside. That's the kind of inconsistency that can open the door for someone like Luke Cornett or even a surprise name like Luka Garza to eat into those minutes. Garza, for all his defensive limitations, has shown flashes that make you wonder if he might end up sneaking into the regular season rotation just by doing the simple things right, setting hard screens, moving without the ball, being in the right place at the right time. And that's where Mazzulla's coaching philosophy becomes so critical. He's not the type to hand out minutes because of draft pedigree or potential. He wants results, accountability, and effort. You make a mistake, you're coming out. You do the dirty work, you'll get your shot. It's a meritocracy, plain and simple. That's why even though the first month might be bumpy, there's real reason to believe this group can steady itself quickly. Mazzulla's grown. The players are maturing. The communication lines are open. When you mix that with the level of talent Boston has, you get a recipe for long-term success. And honestly, that might be the most important thing about this year. Not just chasing wins, but building sustainability. Because championships don't come from one hot streak. They come from consistency, from habits that hold up under pressure. So yeah, the expectations are massive. The spotlight's bright. Every loss will be magnified, every mistake dissected. But that's life when you wear green and white. The Celtics don't run from that. They embrace it. They've got a coach who's finding his rhythm, a group of players ready to define their roles, and a fan base that refuses to settle for anything less than greatness. The ingredients are there. Now it's about putting it all together night after night, possession after possession, until that chemistry turns into something unstoppable. Still, Boston's margin for error isn't massive. The Eastern Conference might not have 10 true contenders, but it has a dozen teams capable of stealing wins if you're not sharp. That's why these early season stretches are so important. They set the tone, not just for the standings, but for the team's mindset. If the Celtics can come out of the first month with rhythm, health, and confidence, it builds the kind of momentum that can carry deep into spring. But if they stumble, the pressure builds fast. This fan base doesn't do patience very well. There's something refreshing, though, about watching this team operate without the usual noise. It's not about hype or headlines. It's about process. You can tell they're trying to block out the comparisons, the past failures, the endless debates about who's the alpha. They're just hooping, competing, and slowly creating an identity that feels authentic. It's Celtics basketball stripped down to its core. Tough, unselfish, relentless. And if they can keep that up once the real grind begins, this season could turn into something special. But before we continue, please remember to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest news about the Boston Celtics. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. Rumors are swirling ahead of one of the most anticipated matchups of the season, as tensions between the Brooklyn Nets and the Boston Celtics appear to have reached a boiling point. Sources close to the team claim that Harrison Barnes didn't hold back in a fiery pregame interview, unleashing pointed criticism of the Celtics' style of play and reigniting a rivalry that has simmered quietly over the past few seasons. According to insiders, Barnes referred to Boston's defensive schemes as overrated and suggested that their recent success might be more luck than skill, a remark that has reportedly left Celtics players and fans fuming. He really went for it. One source familiar with the Nets locker room told us, speaking on condition of anonymity, "It's not often you hear a player of his caliber talk like that before a game. He's clearly trying to get under their skin." This kind of pre-game provocation is sure to add fuel to what is already expected to be a high-stakes contest. Analysts are already speculating that Barnes' comments could serve as a psychological tactic, designed either to distract Boston or to fire up his own squad. Some Celtics players, meanwhile, are reportedly using the remarks as motivation, vowing to let the court do the talking when they face Brooklyn. Fans have taken to social media, with hashtags referencing Barnes' statements trending among both fan bases. Some praise his boldness, calling him a fearless competitor unafraid to speak his mind, while others warn that his remarks might backfire if the Celtics dominate the game. Either way, the buzz surrounding this matchup has skyrocketed, ensuring that every pass, shot, and defensive play will be scrutinized through the lens of this latest drama. As the game draws closer, speculation is mounting over how this verbal sparring will influence the intensity on the court. Will Barnes' comments ignite a Boston comeback, or will they inspire a Nets team confident enough to back up their stars' words? One thing is certain. The stage is set for a battle that goes beyond just points and rebounds. For fans and pundits alike, the question remains, can words alone tilt the balance in this fierce East Coast rivalry? That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Boston Celtics, please subscribe to our channel and give the video a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.